They say, the world belongs to those who look like they belong. Tonight, it didn't belong to him. Rain falling, lights flashing, a world built on money, power, and appearance. And then, there was Julian, standing outside, so uninvited, a man they already judged, before he even walked in. A glance, a smirk, a quiet laugh. That was enough. Sometimes, humiliation doesn't need words. It just needs people watching. She was there too. The one who once stood beside him, now standing with someone else, safe, comfortable, gone. Most men would have walked away, but not Julian, because something inside him didn't break. It changed. So instead of leaving, he walked in, not to belong, not to prove anything, but because he had nothing left to lose. Inside, nothing changed. The same people, the same judgment, the same cold eyes. But this time, he saw the truth, not just who they were, but who he was becoming. And in that moment, everything shifted. The pain turned into focus. The silence turned into power. Because some people don't return to be accepted. They return to remind the world who they are. And they had no idea who just walked in. And they had no idea who just walked in. Because this wasn't the same man they laughed at. This was someone rebuilt in silence. Every look, every whisper, every moment of disrespect. He remembered all of it, not with anger, but with purpose. Julian didn't need their approval anymore. He outgrew it. The noise around him started to fade. The laughter became distant. Because when a man changes, the world doesn't recognize him. Right away, across the room, their eyes still judged him. But this time, he didn't look away. He held it, calm, still, unshaken. That confidence confused them. Because confidence without money scares people. And then, something shifted. Not in the room, but inside him. The pain was no longer heavy. It became fuel. Every step he took felt different now. Not hesitant, intentional. He wasn't walking through them. He was walking past them. And that's when they noticed the same man they ignored now carried something they couldn't understand. Presence, power, without saying a word. And suddenly, the room didn't feel the same. Because energy changes everything. She noticed it too. From across the room, her eyes followed him. Not with love, but with something else. Regret. Because she remembered who he used to be. And now, she was seeing who he became. But it was too late. Because Julian wasn't here for her. He wasn't here for them. He was here to prove something to himself. And this was only the beginning. And this was only the beginning. Because moments like this don't define a man. They reveal him. Julian had spent years trying to be accepted, trying to fit into rooms that were never built for him. But tonight, something finally made sense. He was never meant to fit in. He was meant to stand apart. The difference now, he understood it. And once a man understands his value, everything changes. The way he walks, the way he looks at people, the way he carries silence. It all shifts. The room could feel it, even if they didn't understand it. Because real power doesn't announce itself. It's felt. And Julian was no longer invisible. Step by step, he moved forward, not chasing attention, but commanding it, without effort, without noise, just presence. And that made them uncomfortable. Because people fear what they can't control. And tonight, they couldn't control him. Not his thoughts, not his emotions, not his direction. Nothing. Across the room, conversation slowed. Eyes followed. Judgment turned into curiosity. Curiosity into unease. Because the version of him they thought they knew was gone. This man was different, stronger, sharper, untouchable. And the truth is, they didn't hate him. They feared what he was becoming. Because deep down, they knew a man who rises from nothing can't be stopped. Not by opinions, not by rejection, not by the past, and definitely not by people who doubted him. Julian paused, just for a moment, not to hesitate, but to take it in. The same place that once made him feel small, now felt different, because he was different. And suddenly, none of it mattered anymore. Not their looks, not their whispers, not even her. Because growth requires letting go. And Julian had already moved on, without saying a word, without needing closure, without looking back. And that is what made him dangerous. And that is what made him dangerous. Because silence is powerful, but controlled silence, that's unstoppable. Julian wasn't reacting anymore. He was choosing. Every step, every glance, every second. Intentional, calculated, unshaken. The room kept watching, waiting for something. A mistake, a reaction, a weakness, but it never came. Because this version of him didn't break under pressure. He thrived in it. And that's when it happened. The shift, not inside him, inside them. Respect. The same people who once dismissed him now couldn't ignore him. Because power doesn't come from money, it comes from control. Control over emotions, control over fear, control over self. And Julian had mastered all three. Across the room, the man beside her noticed it too. The confidence, the presence, the quiet dominance. And for the first time, there was tension. Because real recognizes real. And he knew Julian wasn't ordinary. Not anymore. The energy changed, subtly, but enough. Conversations felt forced. Smiles felt fake. Because now, there was someone in the room who didn't need them. And that threatens people. More than anything, Julian kept walking. Not fast, not slow, just steady. Like a man who already won before the game even started. And when he stopped, it wasn't random. It was intentional. Right where he needed to be. Right where they could see him. Not to impress, not to prove, but to exist on his own terms. Because true power isn't loud. It doesn't chase attention. It doesn't beg for validation. It simply stands and lets the world adjust. And tonight, the world was adjusting to him. And tonight, the world was adjusting to him. But power always attracts attention. And not all attention is good. Because in rooms like this, there's always someone who doesn't like losing control. And across the room, he saw him, the man, standing beside her, watching, measuring, trying to understand who Julian really was. Because confidence like that doesn't come from nothing. It comes from experience, pain, loss, growth. And that kind of man is unpredictable. Their eyes met, not for long, but long enough to say everything. No words, no movement, just silence. But in that silence, there was tension. The kind that doesn't need sound. The kind that fills the air. Because both of them knew this wasn't over. Not even close. Julian didn't react, didn't look away, didn't lower himself. Because real power doesn't compete. It observes, waits, and when the moment comes, moves. The room felt heavier, like something was about to happen. People didn't know what, but they felt it. That shift, that pressure, that energy. Because when two forces stand in the same space, something always changes. And tonight, Julian wasn't the same man who once stood outside. He wasn't the one being judged anymore. He was the one everyone was watching, even her. But this time, it wasn't about love. It wasn't about the past. It was about presence. And she could feel it. The distance, the difference, the transformation. Because the man she knew would have looked at her with emotion. This man didn't. No anger, no sadness, no hesitation, just clarity. And that hit harder than anything. Because indifference is louder than rejection. Julian took one step forward, not towards them, but past them. And in that moment, everything became clear. He wasn't there to fight. He wasn't there to prove anything. He was there to show, without saying a word, that he had already won. That he had already won. Not because of money, not because of status, but because he no longer needed any of it. And that is real power. The kind you can't buy. The kind you can't fake. The kind you earn through pain, through loss, through becoming someone the world didn't expect. Julian stood still for a moment, not to be seen, but because he had nothing left to chase, and everything within was finally quiet. No noise, no doubt, no need for validation, just peace and clarity. The most dangerous combination a man can have. Because when a man finds peace, he becomes unstoppable. Not reckless, not emotional, but focused. And focused men change everything. Across the room, they were still watching, still trying to understand how someone they dismissed could walk with that much presence, that much certainty, that much control. But they never would. because they only saw the moment. They never saw the journey. They never saw the nights. He questioned everything. The days. He had nothing. The silence. He built himself in. And that is why they couldn't relate, because they never had to become what he became. She looked at him one last time, not hoping, not expecting, just realizing that the man she once knew was gone, and in his place stood someone she could never reach again, not because he changed for her, but because he changed without her. And that difference changes everything. Julian turned, not slowly, not dramatically, just naturally, like a man who was done explaining, done proving, done looking back. And as he walked away, no one laughed, no one whispered, no one judged, because the same room that once made him feel small now felt something else. Respect, not given, earned. And that is the difference between someone who seeks approval and someone who becomes undeniable, because in the end, it was never about them. It was never about her. It was always about him, becoming who he was meant to be. And the truth is, some people don't come back to be accepted. They come back to show they never needed it. They come back not to be accepted, but to prove they never needed permission.